Holy Bible reading to request divine union with Christ. This is part 58, and we continue with Old Testament book of Judges, chapter 18. Dan embraces Micah's idols. I used to call him Micah. I guess we should call him Micah, prophet Micah. In those days, there was no king in Israel, and in those days, the tribe of Dan sought for itself an inheritance to inhabit, because no inheritance had befallen it until that day in the midst of the tribes of Israel. So the sons of Dan sent 5 men of their family from their territory, sons of valor from Zorah and Eshtaol, to spy upon the land and to search it out. They said to them, "Go, search the land." And they went as far as Mount Ephraim to the house of Micah, and there they lodged. While at the house of Micah, they recognized the voice of the young Levite. They turned towards him and said to him, "Who brought you here? What are you doing in this place? And what do you have here?" He said to them, "This is what Micah did for me. He hired me, and I became his priest. So they said to him, 'Ask now of God, so we may know if we will be successful on our journey that we go on.' And the priest said to them, 'Go in peace. The way in which you go is before the Lord.' So the 5 men departed and came to Laish. And here they saw the people in the midst of it, dwelling securely, as the affairs of the Sidonians were quiet. Here no one was perverting or shaming people or events in the land. There were no heirs extorting treasures, and the land was far from Sidonians, with no ties of mutuality between them. And the 5 men came back to their brethren at Zorah and Eshtaol, and said to their brethren, "Why do you sit preparing for nothing?" And they said, "Arise, let us go up against them, for we have seen the land, and indeed it is very good, yet you are unmotivated. Do not delay. Go and enter the land and possess it. And when you go, you will meet a people at peace, and the land is extensive, for God has given it into your hands, a place where there is nothing lacking in the land." And 600 men of the family of Dan arrived with weapons of war, departing from Zorah and Eshtaol. They went up and encamped in Kiriath Jearim in Judah, and therefore they call that place the camp of Dan to this day. There it is behind Kiriath Jearim. And they passed from there to Mount Ephraim and came to the house of Micah. Then the 5 men who had spied upon the country of Laish spoke and said to their brethren, "Do you know that in this land, in this house, there is an ephod, idols, and carved and molten image? Therefore consider what you shall do." So they turned aside there and went into where the young Levite man stayed, into the house of Micah. In peace they asked how he was. The 600 men armed with their weapons of war, who were of the sons of Dan, remained standing at the door of the gate. Then the 5 men who had spied upon the land went up, and they entered the house of Micah. The priest stood up as they took the carved image, and ephod and idols and the molten image, and said to them, "The priest asks what are you doing?" And they said to him, "Be silent, put your hand over your mouth, and come with us, and be a father and a priest to us. Is it better for you to be a priest in the household of one man, or to be a priest to a tribe and house of a family of Israel?" The heart of the priest was glad, and he took the ephod, the idols, and the carved and molten image, and came into the midst of the people. Then they turned and departed, putting the children, the livestock, and the baggage in front of them. When they had traveled far from the house of Micah, behold, Micah and the men in the house near the house of Micah cried out and overtook the sons of Dan. And the sons of Dan turned their face and said to Micah, "What is the matter with you that you cry out?" And Micah responded, "Because you took away the carved image which I made, and my priest, and left. What remains for me? How is it you can say to me, 'Why do you cry out?'" And the sons of Dan said to him, "Do not let your voice be heard among us, lest men bitter in soul fall upon us and take away your life and the lives of your household." Then the sons of Dan went their way, and when Micah saw they were far stronger than himself, he turned back towards his house. So the sons of Dan took what Micah had made, and the priest who was with him, and they came to Laish, to a people quiet and secure, and they struck them with the edge of the sword and burned the city with fire. There was no deliverer, for the city was far from Sidonians, and no agreements of neutrality. It is the valley of the house of Rahab, and they restored the city and dwelt in it. And they called the city Dan, after Dan their father, who was born to Israel. Formerly the city was named Laish. Then the sons of Dan set up for themselves the carved image, and Jonathan the son of Gershom, the son of Manasseh, and his sons were priests to the tribe of Dan until the day of exile for the nation. So they set up for themselves for as long as the house of God was in Shiloh, and the carved image Micah made. Chapter 19, a Levite takes a concubine. And it was so in the days when there was no king in Israel. There was a certain Levite sojourning on the lower slopes of Mount Ephraim. He took for himself a concubine from Bethlehem in Judah, but his concubine left him and returned to the house of her father to Bethlehem in Judah. She remained there for 4 months. Then her husband arose and sought after her, to speak kindly to her and to win her back to himself. His young servant and a pair of asses were with him. So she brought him into her father's house, and when her father saw him, he was well pleased to meet him. Now his father-in-law, the father of the young woman, delayed him, and he stayed with him for 3 days. And they ate and drank and lodged there. Then on the 4th day they arose early in the morning to depart. But the young woman's father said to his son-in-law, "Strengthen your heart with a morsel of bread, and afterwards go your way." So he sat down, and the two of them ate and drank together. When the young woman's father said to the man, "Please come lodge here, and let your heart be merry." And when the man stood to depart, his father-in-law urged him, so he sat and lodged there again. Then on the 5th day he arose early in the morning to depart, but the father of the young woman said, "Please strengthen your heart and camp here until the day starts to wane." And the two men ate a meal together, and when the men stood to depart, he and his concubine and his servant, his father-in-law, the father of the young woman, said to him, "Look, the day is now drawing towards evening. Please spend the night. See, the day is coming to an end. Lodge here that your heart may be merry, and tomorrow you go your way early so that you may get home." However, the man was not willing to spend that night. So he arose and departed, and came to a place opposite Jebus, that is, Jerusalem. And there with him were the 2 saddled donkeys and his concubine. They had come as far as Jebus, and the day was far advanced. And the young servant said to his master, "Come, let us turn aside into the city of the Jebusites and lodge in it." But his master said to him, "We will not turn aside into a foreign city, where there are no sons of Israel. We will go onward as far as Gibeah." So he said this to the young servant, "Come, let us draw near to one of these places and lodge in Gibeah or in Ramah." And they passed by and went on their way. The sun went down on them near Gibeah, which belongs to Benjamin. There they turned aside to find lodging in Gibeah, and when he went in, he sat down in the open square of the city, and there was not a man who would take him into his house to lodge. And behold, an old man came in from his work in the field that evening. He was from Mount Ephraim, and he sojourned in Gibeah. The men of this place were sons of Benjamin, and his eyes looked upwards, and he saw the traveler in the street of the city. The old man said to him, "Where are you going, and where do you come from?" And so he said to him, "We are passing from Bethlehem in Judah towards the lower slopes of Mount Ephraim. I am from there, and I traveled as far as Bethlehem of Judah, but there is no man to take me into his house. Yet we have straw and food for our donkeys, and bread and wine for me and my handmaid, and for the young man with your servant. There is no lack of anything." And the old man said, "Peace be with you, and let all your needs be upon me. Only do not judge in the open street. Do not lodge in the open street." So he brought him into his house and made a place for the asses, and they washed their feet and ate and drank. As they were comforting their heart, men of the city, sons of lawlessness, surrounded the house and beat on the door. They spoke to the master of the house, the old man, saying, "Bring out the man who entered your house, that we may know him." But the man, the master of the house, went out to them and said to them, No, my brethren, I beg you, do not act so wickedly. Seeing this man has come into my house, do not commit this foolishness. Look, here is my virgin daughter and the man's concubine. I will lead them out now. Subdue and control them. Do with them what is good in your eyes, but to this man do not do such a thoughtless thing. Bring them out that we may know them meant that they wanted to have sex with them, right? That's what they meant. You understand? This is the same thing that happened with Lot, when the angels of God came and told Lot and his daughters and his wife to leave. Now, going back to this. But the men were not inclined to heed him, so the man took his concubine and brought her out to them, and they knew her and abused her all night until morning. And when dawn came, they let her go, and towards dawn the woman came and fell down at the door of the man's house where her master was till there was daylight. When her master arose in the morning and opened the door of the house and went out to go to his way, there was his concubine fallen at the door of the house with her hands on the threshold. And he said to her, Get up and let us be going. But she did not answer, for she was dead. He carried her upon his ass and went to his place. Then he took a sword, laid hold of his concubine, and divided her into 12 pieces. He sent the 12 pieces throughout all the tribes of Israel, and it was so that everyone who saw it said, A day such as this has never happened, nor been seen from the day of the children of Israel were brought out of the land of Egypt until this day. Take counsel amongst yourselves and proclaim your findings. Chapter 20. Israel wars with Benjamites. All the children of Israel came out, all the congregation, from Dan including Beersheba, Barsebi, and from the land of Gilead to the Lord at Mizpah, gathered as one man. And all the tribes of Israel stood before the Lord in the assembly of the people of God, 400,000 foot soldiers who drew the sword. Now the sons of Benjamin heard that the sons of Israel had gone up to Mizpah. Then the sons of Israel came and said, Tell us where this wicked deed happened. So the Levite man, the husband of the woman murdered, answered and said, My concubine and I went to Gibeah of Benjamin to lodge. And that night the men of Gibeah rose against me and surrounded the house. They intended to kill me, but instead they raped my concubine, and as a result she died. So I laid hold of my concubine and divided her in pieces, and because they committed lewdness and outrage in Israel, I sent her throughout all the territory of the inheritance of the children of Israel. Look, you are all children of Israel. Consider and take counsel here among yourselves. So all the people arose as one man, saying, None of us will go back to his tent, nor will any turn back to his house. Instead, this is what is to be done to Gibeah. We will go up against it by lot. Moreover, we will take the men out of every 100,000, of every 100 throughout all the tribes of Israel, 100 out of every 1,000, and 1,000 out of every 10,000, to make provision for the people to entice them to come to Gibeah in Benjamin, and then do to it all the vileness which it did in Israel. So all the men of Israel gathered in the city as one man. Then the tribes of Israel sent men throughout all the tribes of Benjamin, saying, What is this wickedness that has occurred among you? Now therefore deliver up the men, the sons of lawlessness in Gibeah, so that we may put them to death and put away the evil from Israel. But the sons of Benjamin were not pleased to hear the voice of their brethren, the sons of Israel. Instead, the sons of Benjamin gathered together from their cities to Gibeah to go into battle against the sons of Israel. And from their cities at that time, the sons of Benjamin numbered 23,000 men who drew the sword, not including the inhabitants of Gibeah, who numbered 700 select men from all this people who could use both hands. All these could sling a stone at a hair and not miss. The men of Israel, excluding Benjamin, numbered 400,000 men who drew the sword. All of these were men of war. Then the sons of Israel arose and went up to Bethel to inquire of God. They said, Which of us shall first go up to battle against the sons of Benjamin? The Lord said, Judah as leader will go up first. So the sons of Israel rose in the early morning and encamped against Gibeah. And all the men of Israel went out to battle against Benjamin, and they engaged them at Gibeah. Then the sons of Benjamin came out of Gibeah, and on that day in Israel, Benjamin cut down to the ground 22,000 men of the Israelites. And the men of Israel regrouped and again engaged in battle at the place where they engaged on the first day. Then the sons of Israel went up and wept before the Lord until evening, and asked counsel of the Lord, saying, Shall we again draw near for battle against the sons of Benjamin, our brothers? And the Lord said, Go up against them. So the sons of Israel went out to wage war against the sons of Benjamin on the second day. And the sons of Benjamin went out to meet those from Gibeah on the second day, and cut down to the ground 18,000 more of the sons of Israel. All these drew the sword. Then all the sons of Israel and all the people went up and came to Bethel and wept. They sat there before the Lord and fasted that day until evening, and they offered burnt offerings and pure offerings before the Lord, because the ark of the covenant of God was there in those days. In those days Phinehas, the son of Eleazar, the son of Aaron, stood before it, and the sons of Israel asked the Lord, saying, Shall we yet go out to battle against the sons of Benjamin, our brothers, or shall we cease? And the Lord said, Go up, for tomorrow I will deliver them into your hands. Then the sons of Israel positioned themselves for an ambush round about Gibeah. And the sons of Israel went up against the sons of Benjamin on the third day, and arrayed themselves against Gibeah as before. So all the sons of Benjamin went out to meet the people, leaving the city empty. As they did before, they began to strike down and kill some of the people, about 30 men of Israel, on the roads, one heading to Bethel and the other to Gibeah, and in the field. And the sons of Benjamin said, As the first time they are falling before us. But the sons of Israel said, Let us flee, so as to draw them out from the city onto the roads. And they did so. So every man rose up from his place and united together at Baal Tamar. And the men of Israel burst forth from their position of ambush at Maragabeh. 10,000 select men from all Israel came against Gibeah, and the battle was fierce. And Gibeah did not comprehend the disaster that was coming upon them. The Lord struck Benjamin before the sons of Israel, and the sons of Israel destroyed 25,100 men from Benjamin that day. All these drew the sword. So the sons of Benjamin saw that they were beaten, and the men of Israel gave up ground to the Benjamites, for they relied on the ambush they had prepared against Gibeah. And as the sons of Israel retreated, those men in ambush rose up and quickly charged Gibeah. The entire ambush rushed forth and struck the city with the edge of the sword, and the sons of Israel used the signal of battle with those in ambush. They would send up a signal of smoke from the city, and the sons of Israel saw that the ambush had seized Gibeah. So they stood in battle formation, allowing Benjamin to strike and wound about 30 of the men of Israel, for they said, Surely again they are defeated before us, as in the first battle. But when the signal cloud began to rise as a pillar of concentrated smoke from the city, the Benjaminites looked behind them, and behold, the complete end of the city was rising up to heaven. The men of Israel turned back, and the men of Benjamin hastened away, seeing that evil overwhelmed them. Therefore they looked in the direction of the desert, away from the sons of Israel, and fled. But the battle overtook them, and those from the city utterly eliminated those in the midst of them. And they cut down the Benjaminites, causing them from the foot of Nova, and easily trampling them down until they came opposite Gibeah towards the east. And 18,000 men of Benjamin fell. All these were men of strength. The rest turned and fled towards the wilderness to the rock of Rimmon. And the sons of Israel cut down 5,000 men. The sons of Israel relentlessly pursued them after as far as Giddon, and struck 2,000 of their men. All of Benjamin who drew the sword that day and fell were 25,000 men. All these were men of valor. The rest turned and fled towards the desert to the rock of Rimmon, even 600 men, and they remained at the rock of Rimmon for 4 months. And the sons of Israel turned back against the sons of Benjamin and struck them with the edge of the sword from the city of Methlah to the livestock and to everything found in all the cities. And they set on fire all the cities they found. Chapter 21. Wives for the Benjamites. Wives for the Benjamites. Now the men of Israel swore an oath at Mizpah, saying, "None of us shall give his daughter to Benjamin as a wife." Then the people came to Bethel and remained there before God till evening. They lifted up their voices and wept mightily and said, "The Lord of God of Israel, why has this come to pass, that today one tribe should be missing in Israel?" The tribe of Benjamin, that is. The next morning the people rose early and built an altar there and offered burnt offerings and peace offerings. The sons of Israel said, "Who is there among all the tribes of Israel who did not come up with the assembly of the Lord?" For they had made a great oath concerning anyone who had not come up to the Lord at Mizpah, saying, "He shall surely be put to death." And the sons of Israel had compassion towards Benjamin their brother, and said, "One tribe is cut off from Israel today. What shall we do for wives for the large number who remain? For we have sworn by the Lord not to give them our daughters as wives." And then they said, "What one tribe of Israel did not come up to Mizpah to the Lord?" And take notice, no one came to the camp from Jabesh Gilead to the assembly. For when the people were counted, indeed not one of the inhabitants of Jabesh Gilead was there. So the congregation sent out there 12,000 men from the sons of valor, and commanded them, saying, "Go and strike the inhabitants of Jabesh Gilead with the edge of the sword, and this is what you shall do. You shall utterly destroy every male and every woman who has known a man intimately, but the virgins you will preserve." And they did so. So they found among the inhabitants of Jabesh Gilead 400 young virgins who had not known a man intimately, and they brought them to the camp at Shiloh in the land of Canaan. Then the whole congregation sent and spoke to the sons of Benjamin, who were at the rock of Rimmon, and called them to peace. Benjamin came back to the sons of Israel at the time, and the sons of Israel gave them the women whom they saved alive of the daughters of Jabesh Gilead, and it was thus pleasing to them. The people had compassion for Benjamin because the Lord brought about a rift in the tribes of Israel. And the elders of the congregation said, "What shall we do for wives for those who remain, since the women of Benjamin were destroyed?" And they said, "There must be an inheritance for the survivors of Benjamin, so that a tribe of Israel may not be wiped out. For we will not be able to give them wives from our daughters, because we swore among the sons of Israel, saying, 'Cursed be the one who gives a wife to Benjamin.' And they said, 'Remember, in a few days there is the yearly feast of the Lord in Shiloh on the north of Bethel, on the road leading toward eastward from Bethel to Shechem, and from the south of Lebonah.' Therefore they instructed the sons of Benjamin, saying, 'Go, lie in wait in the vineyards, and watch. And behold, if the daughters of the inhabitants of Shiloh come out to perform in their dances, then go out from the vineyards, and let every man capture a wife for himself from the daughters of Shiloh, and return to the land of Benjamin. And whenever their fathers or their brothers come to pass judgment on you, we will say to them, Have compassion on them for us, since no man received from us a wife for himself in the war, because you did not give to them at the appointed time you transgressed.' And the sons of Benjamin did so. They took enough wives for their number from those who danced, whom they seized. Then they went and returned to their inheritance, and rebuilt the cities and dwelt in them. At that time the sons of Israel walked away from that place, every man to his tribe and his family, and they went out from there, every man to his inheritance. In those days there was no king in Israel. A man did what was right according to his own vision." And that is the end of Judges, and tomorrow we'll continue Old Testament with the book of Ruth. And now we'll go to Acts. We'll continue with Acts, chapter 25. The trial before Festus. Now when Festus has come to the province, after 3 days he went up from Caesarea to Jerusalem. Then the high priest and the chief men of the Jews informed him against Paul, and they petitioned him, taking a favor against him, that he would summon him to Jerusalem, while they lay in ambush along the road to kill him. But Festus answered that Paul should be kept in Caesarea, and that he himself was going there shortly. Thereafter he said, "Let those who have authority among you go down with me and accuse this man, to see if there is any fault in him." And when he had remained among them more than 10 days, he went down to Caesarea, and the next day sitting on the judgment seat, he commanded Paul to be brought. When he had come, the Jews who had come down from Jerusalem stood about and laid many serious complaints against Paul, which they could not prove. While he answered for himself, neither against the law of the Jews, nor against the temple, nor against Caesar have I offended in anything at all. But Festus, wanting to do the Jews a favor, answered Paul and said, Are you willing to go up to Jerusalem and there be judged before me concerning these things? So Paul said, I stand at Caesar's judgment seat, where I ought to be judged. To the Jews I have done no wrong, as you very well know, for I am an offender. For if I am an offender, or have committed anything deserving of death, I do not object to dying. But if there is nothing in these things of which these men accuse me, no one can deliver me to them. I appeal to Caesar. Then Festus, when he had conferred with the council, answered, You have appealed to Caesar you shall go. Festus' plan. And after some days, King Agrippa and Bernice came to Caesarea to greet Festus. And they had been there many days. Festus laid Paul's case before the king, saying, There is a certain man left a prisoner by Felix, about whom the chief priests and the elders of the Jews informed me when I was in Jerusalem, asking for a judgment against him. To them I answered, It is not the custom of the Roman to deliver any man to destruction before the accused meets the accuser face to face and has opportunity to answer for himself concerning the charge against him. Therefore, when they had come together without any delay next day, I sat on the judgment seat and commanded the man to be brought in. When the accuser stood up, they brought no accusation against him of such things as supposed, but had some questions against him about their own religion and about a certain Jesus who had died, whom Paul affirmed to be alive. And because I was uncertain of such questions, I asked whether he was willing to go to Jerusalem, but there he judged concerning these matters, and there be judged concerning these matters. But when Paul appealed to be reserved for the decision of Augustus, I commanded him to be kept till I could send him to Caesar. Then Agrippa said to Festus, I also would like to hear this man myself. Tomorrow, he said, you shall hear him. So the next day, when Agrippa and Bernice had come with great pomp and had entered the auditorium with the commanders and the prominent men of the city, at Festus' command Paul was brought in. And Festus said, King Agrippa and all the men who are here present with us, you see this man about whom the whole assembly of the Jews petitioned me, both at Jerusalem and here, crying out that he was not fit to live any longer. But when I found that he had committed nothing deserving of death, and that he himself had appealed to Augustus, I decided to send him. I have nothing certain to write to my lord concerning him. Therefore I have brought him out before you, and especially before you, King Agrippa, so that after the examination has taken place, I may have something to write. For it seems to me unreasonable to send a prisoner and not to specify the charges against him. Chapter 26, Paul's defense. Then Agrippa said to Paul, Are you permitted to speak for yourself? So Paul stretched out his hand and answered for himself, I think myself happy, King Agrippa, because today I shall answer for myself before you concerning all the things of which I am accused by the Jews, especially because you are an expert in all customs and questions which have to do with the Jews. Therefore I beg you to hear me patiently. My manner of life from my youth, which was spent from the beginning among my own nation at Jerusalem, all the Jews know. They know me from the first, if they were willing to testify that according to the strictest sect of our religion, I lived a Pharisee, and now I stand and am judged the hope of the promise made by God to our fathers. To this promise our 12 tribes earnestly served God night and day, hope to attain. For this hope's sake, King Agrippa, I am accused by the Jews. Why should it be thought incredible by you that God raises the dead? Indeed, I myself thought I must do many things contrary to the name of Jesus of Nazareth. This I also did in Jerusalem, and many of the saints I shut up in prison have received authority from the chief priests, and when they were put to death, I cast my vote against them, and I punished them often in every synagogue, and compelled them to blaspheme, and being exceedingly enraged against them, I persecuted them even to foreign cities. While thus occupied, As I journeyed to Damascus with authority and commission from the chief priests, at midday, O king, along the road I saw a light from heaven, brighter than the sun, shining around me and those who journeyed with me. And when we all had fallen to the ground, I heard a voice speaking to me and saying in the Hebrew language, Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me? It is hard for you to kick against the goads. So I said, Who are you, Lord? And he said, I am Jesus, whom you are persecuting. But rise and stand on your feet, for I have appeared to you for this purpose, to make you a minister and a witness, both of the things of which you have seen and of the things which I will yet reveal to you. I will deliver you from the Jewish people, as well as from the Gentiles, to whom I now send you, to open their eyes, in order to turn them from darkness to light, and from the power of Satan to God, that they may receive forgiveness of sins and an inheritance among those who are sanctified by faith in me. Therefore, King Agrippa, I was not disobedient to the heavenly vision, but declared first to those in Damascus and in Jerusalem and throughout all the region of Judea and to the Gentiles that they should repent, turn to God, and do works befitting repentance. For these reasons the Jews seized me in the temple and tried to kill me. Therefore, having obtained help from God to this day, I stand witnessing both to small and great, saying no other things than those which the prophets and Moses said would come, and the Christ would suffer, that he would be the first to rise from the dead, and would proclaim light to the Jewish people and to the Gentiles. The tribunal's reaction. Now as he thus made his defense, Festus said with a loud voice, Paul, you are beside yourself. Much learning is driving you mad. But he said, I am not mad, most noble Festus, but speak the words of truth and reason. For the king, before whom I also speak freely, knows these things, for I am convinced that none of these things escapes his attention, since this thing was not done in a corner. King Agrippa, do you believe the prophets? I know that you do believe. Then Agrippa said to Paul, you almost persuaded me to become a Christian. And Paul said, I would to God that not only you, but also all who hear me today might become both almost and altogether such as I am, except for these chains. When he had said these things, the king stood up, as well as the governor and Bernice, and those who sat with them. And when they had gone aside, they talked among themselves, saying, This man is doing nothing deserving of death or chains. Then Agrippa said to Festus, This man might have been set free if he had not appealed to Caesar. And we'll continue with chapter 27 of Acts. Paul's voyage to Rome begins. Thank you for your support. God bless you. If you'd like to join me on my Patreon account, you will hear content not covered by mainstream media. These riveting stories will be based on my research, and I will state my opinions and give my personal insight on diverse and controversial subjects and world events not covered by mainstream media, and not supported by YouTube guidelines. So whatever I have on my Patreon, most of those will not be on my YouTube channel. Please consider becoming a member today. More of the most significant and important videos will be on my Patreon channel. Your support helps me to continue my research and keeps this YouTube channel alive. And we depend on your support, your generous charity, because we help economically challenged families here in Athens, Greece, in Kapota, and we also help the young generation with university tuition and the community around our church. Thank you.